March 8, 2014. Imagine boarding a plane for what should have been an ordinary overnight flight. 239 people. One modern Boeing 777. A route flown hundreds of times before. Nothing seemed unusual. The passengers settled into their seats. The cabin lights dimmed. The engines roared. And Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared into the night. Not crashed. Not hijacked, at least no one knows. Not found. It simply vanished. No distress call. No explosion. No emergency signal. Just silence. For days, the world believed the aircraft would soon be located. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Then years. The largest search operation in aviation history began. Governments, military satellites, navies, aircraft, submarines, thousands of investigators, billions of dollars. Yet somehow, one of the largest passenger aircraft ever built disappeared without a trace. Even today, more than a decade later, the mystery of MH370 remains unsolved. How can a Boeing 777 simply vanish in the 21st century? What really happened to the 239 souls on board? And why? Has no one been able to answer those questions? Before we begin, if you enjoy true mysteries, forgotten history, and documentaries based on real events, make sure to subscribe, because every week we uncover stories the world still cannot explain. Now, fasten your seatbelt, because this is the unbelievable mystery of Flight MH370. March 8, 2014. At exactly 12:41 a.m. local time, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 lifted off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Its destination was Beijing. On board were 239 people, 227 passengers, 12 crew members, families returning home, business travelers, students, children. A normal overnight flight. The aircraft itself was one of the safest ever built. A Boeing 777-200ER. Less than 12 years old. Pilots around the world considered it one of the most reliable passenger aircraft ever created. In the cockpit sat Captain Zahiri Ahmed Shah, a veteran pilot. He had logged more than 18,000 flight hours. Beside him, First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, young, experienced, and on the verge of becoming a fully certified captain. Nothing about this crew suggested danger. The weather forecast was excellent. No storms, no turbulence, no technical warnings. Inside the cabin, passengers were already relaxing. Some watched movies. Others listened to music. Many had already fallen asleep. Flight attendants quietly served drinks before dimming the lights. Everything appeared completely routine. For the first 40 minutes, MH370 followed its planned route perfectly. Air traffic controllers watched its icon move steadily across their radar screens. Every system on board reported normal. Then, at 1:19 a.m., the final radio transmission arrived. Captain Zahiri calmly replied, "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those would become some of the most haunting words in aviation history. Less than 2 minutes later, the aircraft disappeared from civilian radar. Completely. No distress call. No emergency beacon. No indication of fire. No explosion. Nothing. It was as if the airplane had suddenly become invisible. Controllers immediately tried calling the cockpit again. Silence. Again. Nothing. Minutes passed. Perhaps the radio had failed. Perhaps another control center would establish contact. Everyone assumed there was a simple explanation. Meanwhile, inside the aircraft, no one knows what was happening. No recordings have ever been recovered. No survivors have ever been found. Only silence. Military radar would later reveal something astonishing. Instead of continuing toward Beijing, MH370 had turned around. Not slightly, not accidentally. It made a deliberate turn, crossing back over the Malaysian peninsula. Then, it flew northwest, far away from its assigned route. Someone, or something, had changed the course of flight MH370. But why? And who was controlling the aircraft? Investigators would spend years trying to answer those questions. Yet this was only the beginning, because what happened next would become the largest and most expensive search in aviation history. As dawn broke over Southeast Asia, air traffic controllers still believed flight MH370 would eventually respond. Perhaps there had been a communication failure. Perhaps the aircraft had landed safely somewhere. But hour after hour, there was nothing. No radio calls. No emergency beacon. No radar contact. By sunrise, every minute without news made the situation more alarming. Malaysia officially declared the aircraft missing. Immediately, one of the largest search operations in aviation history began. At first, everyone searched the wrong place. Ships from Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, China, and later Australia rushed toward the South China Sea. Military aircraft flew endless search patterns. Coast Guard vessels scanned every wave. Helicopters searched for floating debris. The world expected to find wreckage within hours. Instead, they found absolutely nothing. No oil slick. No life jackets. No seats. No luggage. No bodies. Nothing. It was as if the Boeing 777 had simply disappeared into thin air. Then, a shocking discovery changed everything. Military radar recordings, which had not been reviewed immediately, revealed that MH370 had not continued toward Beijing. Instead, the aircraft had made a sharp left turn. It crossed back over the Malaysian peninsula, flew across the Strait of Malacca, and continued northwest. This was not random. It was a controlled maneuver. Someone had deliberately changed the aircraft's course. Investigators now faced an impossible question. If the plane had turned around, where did it go next? Then came another breakthrough. Thousands of kilometers away, engineers at a British satellite communications company called Inmarsat examined data that everyone else had ignored. Although the aircraft never transmitted another message, its satellite system continued sending tiny automated electronic handshakes. Not voice, not text, just silent electronic pings. One every hour. These tiny signals proved something unbelievable. MH370 had continued flying, not for minutes, but for almost 7 hours after disappearing from civilian radar. 7 hours. A Boeing 777 carrying 239 people had crossed some of the emptiest skies on Earth, without anyone knowing exactly where it was. Using advanced mathematical calculations, engineers measured tiny shifts in the satellite signals. From those calculations, they drew two enormous possible flight paths. One stretched north towards Central Asia. The other, far south, deep into the remote Indian Ocean. After weeks of analysis, investigators ruled out the northern route. All remaining evidence pointed toward one terrifying conclusion. MH370 had flown south, into one of the most isolated regions on Earth. An endless ocean, thousands of kilometers from land, a place where almost no ships ever passed. The search operation suddenly moved thousands of kilometers away. New aircraft, new ships, new sonar equipment, new underwater robots. But the ocean they now faced was unlike anything investigators had ever searched before. Some underwater mountains were taller than skyscrapers. Ocean trenches reached depth of nearly 6,000 meters. Violent storms regularly interrupted the mission. Even modern technology struggled to map the seabed. Still, the search continued. Every new day brought hope. Every sunset brought disappointment. Weeks turned into months. The cost climbed into hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet the ocean remained silent. And the greatest aviation mystery in modern history was only becoming more mysterious. Months passed. Then, for the first time, the ocean finally gave investigators something. On July 29, 2015, more than 16 months after flight MH370 disappeared, a maintenance worker walking along a remote beach on Reunion Island made an extraordinary discovery. Lying among rocks and seaweed was a large aircraft wing component, weathered, covered in barnacles, but unmistakably part of a Boeing 777. Experts immediately flew the piece to France for examination. Engineers compared every serial number, every rivet, every manufacturing mark. Days later, they reached a historic conclusion. The fragment, known as a flaperon, belonged to MH370. For the first time, there was undeniable proof. The aircraft had crashed into the Indian Ocean. But where? That single discovery reignited hope. Oceanographers studied currents. Marine biologists examined the barnacles attached to the debris. Satellite experts reviewed years of data once again. Every tiny clue was analyzed. Over the following years, more pieces slowly appeared. A section of the horizontal stabilizer, interior cabin panels, fragments of engine coverings, pieces of luggage, all washing ashore across the western Indian Ocean. From Madagascar, Mozambique, Tanzania, South Africa, and nearby islands, each discovery confirmed the same heartbreaking reality. The aircraft had entered the southern Indian Ocean. But the main wreckage remained missing. Meanwhile, deep beneath the waves, the search became even more difficult. Specialized ships equipped with side-scan sonar, autonomous underwater vehicles, and deep-sea robots began mapping one of the most remote parts of Earth's oceans. Some underwater mountains rose thousands of meters from the seabed. Hidden canyons, steep cliffs, and volcanic ridges made navigation incredibly difficult. Every square kilometer had to be scanned slowly, meter by meter. The operation became one of the most expensive underwater searches ever attempted. By 2017, more than 120,000 square kilometers of ocean floor had been searched. Still, nothing. No fuselage. No engines. No cockpit voice recorder. No flight data recorder. Without those black boxes, investigators could never know exactly what happened during the aircraft's final hours. Then came another surprise. In 2018, an American exploration company called Ocean Infinity launched a completely new search using state-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicles. These robotic submarines could dive deeper, travel farther, and map the seabed faster than any previous technology. Once again, hope returned. The robots searched tirelessly for months. They discovered shipwrecks, underwater volcanoes, and countless geological formations never seen before. But MH370 remained invisible. When the mission finally ended, the mystery was still unsolved. The ocean had revealed just enough evidence to prove the aircraft was gone, but not enough to explain why. Even today, the exact resting place of Flight MH370 remains unknown. And without the wreckage, one final question continues to haunt investigators around the world. What really happened during those final 7 hours? More than a decade has passed, yet the disappearance of Flight MH370 continues to haunt investigators, pilots, engineers, and the families of the 239 people who never came home. Despite millions of dollars spent, countless hours of investigation, and some of the most advanced technology ever used in aviation, the most important question remains unanswered. Why did Flight MH370 disappear? Over the years, dozens of theories have emerged. Some are supported by evidence. Others are built only on speculation. One theory suggests someone inside the cockpit deliberately changed the aircraft's course. Investigators know that the aircraft made controlled turns, followed established airways, and continued flying for hours. These actions were unlikely to have happened by accident. But no definitive proof has ever shown who was controlling the aircraft, or why. Another theory points toward a catastrophic mechanical failure. Could a fire have disabled the crew? Could decompression have left everyone unconscious, while the aircraft continued flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel? Some aviation experts believe this scenario is possible. Others argue it cannot explain every piece of evidence. There are also theories involving hijacking, cyber interference, or unknown technical failures. But after years of investigation, none of these explanations has been proven. One by one, they all encounter unanswered questions. And that is what makes MH370 different from almost every other aviation disaster. Normally, when an aircraft crashes, investigators recover the flight recorders. They reconstruct every second. They identify the cause. They improve aviation safety. But in the case of MH370, the aircraft itself remains missing. Without the cockpit voice recorder, without the flight data recorder, the final moments remain locked beneath the ocean. For the families, the pain never truly ended. Many spent years hoping that new evidence would finally reveal the truth. Some still do, because without answers, there can be no real closure. In recent years, new technology has renewed hope. Private exploration companies have proposed fresh searches using more advanced autonomous underwater vehicles, artificial intelligence, and improved seabed mapping. Some experts believe the wreckage could still be found. Others believe it may remain hidden forever beneath one of the deepest and most remote oceans on Earth. If the aircraft is ever discovered, the black boxes, if they survived, could finally answer the questions that have haunted the world since March 8, 2014. Until that day, Flight MH370 remains one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. An advanced Boeing 777, 239 innocent lives, and a disappearance that should have been impossible. Yet somehow, it happened. Perhaps one day, the ocean will finally reveal its secret. Or perhaps MH370 will remain the greatest unsolved aviation mystery of all time. So now we ask you, what do you believe happened to Flight MH370? Do you think it was a tragic accident, a deliberate act, or something investigators have never even considered? Share your theory in the comments below. And if you enjoy documentaries based on real mysteries, forgotten history, and unbelievable true stories, don't forget to subscribe, because the next mystery might be even more unbelievable than this one. Thank you for watching.